prioritization. So with that, we're fortunate to have this great panel. I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what your particular organization does in advancing acceleration for emerging growth companies. I know they are eager to answer questions that I have, but more importantly, questions that you have. And so we're going to start with that, and then we'll do some Q&A, and hopefully come away with some new knowledge about how to grow our companies. You want to start?
I will. Great, thank you. I'm Lisa Burton. I'm the Executive Director of Hearst Lab. We are a program for early stage women-led startups, and we're associated with Hearst Media. So what this means is that we financially invest in the companies. It's typically a pre-seed or a seed stage company. And we also offer them a number of different resources, including office space for about 9 months in Hearst Tower, access to our legal team, you would appreciate that. And then we have a group of about 50 Hearst Lab scouts, and these are women that work full-time at Hearst that donate some of their time to help our companies. And then the last big resource is our team of full-time fellows. So those are individuals that are specialists in DevOps engineering, UI UX design, business development, operations, and so they really fill the gap that these early stage startups have that they won't necessarily hire a resource source full-time, but have that need. So we have about 15 companies in our portfolio right now. We have been around for about 2 years, and I'd love to talk to anybody here afterwards about it as well.
Thank you.
I'm Sean Sullivan with SOSD. SOSD runs accelerators globally. In Shenzhen, HAX is our hardware accelerator. That is the world's leading hardware accelerator. In China, in Shanghai, China Accelerator. In Taipei, MOX, which is a mobile-only software accelerator. And here in the States, we have FoodX in New York City, and in San Francisco, IndieBio, and also in London and Cork, we have another life science accelerator. So we invest around $50 million a year, $60 million a year into early stage, 150 new startups that we back every year through our accelerators. We are actually, I think, ranked the number 2 or 3 now most active investor, venture capital investor in the world by the number of deals that we do. As I indicated, we go very, very vertical in our accelerators, very super concentrated in the areas of, for example, life sciences with biotech companies or new future food style companies, many of which you probably have heard of, maybe not, hardware, robotics, Internet of Things, all those types of products, to some software and other specialties. So that's what we do generally. We give between $100,000 and $250,000 for a very small equity stake of the company, and then we work with the companies, as accelerators do, for a period of 4 months or so to a year or so, directly hands-on in our multi-million-dollar facilities that we have in those various places. And that's we like to work with them to help them go further faster. That's the job of an accelerator.
Great. Thank you. Hi, I'm Lynn McMahon. I'm with Accenture. I run our New York office and our media and entertainment practice for North America. We have about 5,000 people here in this area, and about 50,000 people within North America. A couple of aspects that I want to talk about is we look at this as part of an extension of our innovation agenda that we bring to our clients. So we're very active in both the Accenture Ventures area of finding companies that we believe are powerful either to our offerings or to offerings our clients may have. And we then either do investments in those companies or we do a lot of acquisitions of companies, for Accenture actually. One example that I talk about where we, is probably a good example, we do it in different industry sectors, but the example that's probably pretty relevant to this metropolitan area is the work that we do with the Partnership for New York around fintech innovation. And every year we identify with the financial community about 12 startups that then go through a pretty extensive year-long process that involves both funding, some places to work, and then a ton of mentoring goes into that, both from the side, from a consultant helping on business planning, operating planning, but then also from the financial companies in New York who provide a mentor. Each of the companies takes on one of the fintech startups. And then it culminates in a demo day at the end of that 3-month session where they've been prepping for that, where they've gotten a lot of coaching, where then actually it's where some of the funding is done. So that's probably one good example of a particular sector that we work in, and then of course there's others.
Hi everyone, my name is Allison Williams and I'm the Director of MVP Labs at Newark Venture Partners. Newark Venture Partners is a venture capital firm. We have 2 arms to our business. MVP Labs is what we call our Bridge to Seed program. We invest in 15 to 20 companies a year in 2 cohorts, one in the spring, one in the fall. These companies are usually about 30,000 monthly recurring revenue. There's a product in market, obviously. It's usually kind of post-pivot. We think actually a lot of our companies are coming from more of the traditional accelerator programs. They come and they work from our office, which is in the Audible building on the 7th floor, and we help them with a very cohesive curriculum to, as put earlier, grow faster, grow bigger, faster. That's really our job. The other arm of it is our direct investment arm. We invest in seed and kind of early Series A companies, and we can invest up to $1 million. And we are a $50 million fund that was launched about 1.5 years ago. So that's basically summarizes our fund. One of our big differentiators is our corporate LPs. So we have 7 major corporate LPs from Audible, Panasonic, Prudential, TD Bank, Horizon, Blue Cross Blue Shield, RWJ, Barnabas. So we really leverage that community as what we call specialists who come in and mentor our portfolio, but also with potential partnerships. So we've seen some really excellent collaborations, actually closing deals, and then we have a handful of pilots that are going on right now. So our investments have really seen the benefit of our corporate partners. And then lastly, we are a community. So we are kind of a bustling community within the 4 walls of Newark Venture Partners. But then we've also really created an excellent community within Newark. And we are encouraging a lot of our investments to put their roots down in Newark. We're really, we think that it could be the next major tech hub. And it started with us, but we really are starting to see that come to fruition.
Thank you guys so much. What is so compelling to me in listening to you guys is the same kind of advice that we give companies when they're talking to venture capital investors or later stage investors is know your investor. And as we talk about accelerator programs, I can't help but think about how much that applies to the selection of an accelerator program. Because in listening to the 4 of you, while I heard, and we all heard about the benefits of space and partnering and mentorship, we also heard such distinct goals from each of you, from the geographic to the gender specific to industry focus. So can you talk a little bit about that in terms of when someone is looking at a particular program, what should they be looking for and how do they match up their businesses to find the appropriate acceleration experience?
I guess one thing I would say is, one important factor I think is where in their life cycle they are. If you just have an idea that maybe you scribble on a napkin or maybe you put it into a PowerPoint, MVP is not the right company, not the right accelerator for you. We're not going to be providing the kind of support that you need. We're not giving you classes on product market fit and initial customer testing. And the opposite, if you are, if you have a product in market and you have clients, the last thing you want to do is be in a program where it requires you to be in all of these classroom settings where you're not getting individual support and attention. So that's a top factor for me.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so for the accelerators that we run, we get around 4,000 applications. We're not geographically focused, even though we obviously have different hubs in different cities. Like, if you're trying to start a hardware company, it's kind of ridiculous not to be in Shenzhen. China is where all the people, whether you're Apple, computer, a great American manufacturer, if you're doing auto manufacturing in Shenzhen, you have huge numbers of engineers in Shenzhen, as well as some design engineers in Mountain View, et cetera. What we do is we take the design engineers from wherever they are coming from around the world with their prototypes, their rough prototypes of a working device. We get, as I said, I think 4,000 applications. We select 150, so it's, for every 25 applications or so, we'll take one. And then for those that have a real working prototype, we'll just help them manufacture in packs with a staff of 20 industrial engineers, mechanical design for manufacturing engineers, all the things that you need to do in supply chain and working with various hundreds of factories that we work with. We have, products that are going into Apple stores, and going into Targets and Best Buys and every retail chain in the world on the consumer side, as well as industrial products and industrial robotics that are going in factory lines for automotive companies as well. So we have all those different types of engineering to get, so super focused, right, in hardware. And that's why it's the #1 hardware accelerator in the world, because we have 50,000 square feet with all the equipment, the boards, the oscilloscopes, everything you need if you're going to do hardware. So the companies come from all over the world, and surprisingly, 60% of the companies are coming from North America, from the United States and Canada, even though they're hardware companies. So, and the companies also come from China as well. Around 20% of the companies come from China. But that's one type of threshold you have to cross if you're going to get into hacks. And if you're going to get into IndieBio, which is a life science company, then generally you'll have at least one PhD, on your team. You'll probably have you'll be the cutting edge in whatever breakthrough it is, whether it's autism diagnostics or some type of medical device, or a new form of analytics for RNA, as it correlates to prediction of different types of neural functions, neurological diseases, etc. Or new types of food like Memphis meats, which makes meat without. We have a whole specialty in food. We have a company, Memphis meats, which makes meat without cows or chickens, etc. Just growing it from stem cells. It's not yet available in Costco, but it will be. Perfect Day, which makes milk without cows, can make milk at a quarter the cost the cow takes to make it, and much better for the environment, no methane production, etc. All these different types of specialties. So you'd be coming in with, world-leading expertise in any area, even if you don't have revenue. So it's a different target for us. As you were saying, at Newer Venture Partners, it's a $25,000, $30,000 a month recurring revenue, which is probably a sweet spot. But I also know you also have backed some of our companies that had zero revenue. Industrial Organic is set up there. Now they're not zero revenue, but when you backed them originally, they were zero revenue. Because they're in Newark and they're doing something really amazing and innovative as well. So everyone makes exceptions. We all make exceptions, but in our case, they don't have to have revenues. Most of the companies are first-time founders, and we believe that that's actually if you didn't back first-time founders, you wouldn't have backed Microsoft, you wouldn't have backed Google, you wouldn't have backed Amazon. It's actually a good idea to back first-time founders, even at the point where nobody else has backed them previously. And so we probably 78% of the founders we back are first-time founders, but and sometimes they have $1 million in revenue before they're coming into the program or whatever. but they just have, the companies really have to look at our different programs and see what we have to offer, and whether the wet labs that we have, or the PhDs that we have, et cetera, are helpful to where they need to go, and how to get there faster. So I think a lot of the companies just want to know that they're looking for a gateway to financing, right? A lot of the companies are going through accelerators, and whether or not they've gotten funding before, I say 80% of the companies have not gotten more than $500,000 in funding previous to going into the accelerator. It's probably higher. For other accelerators, I'd probably say 95% for a lot of other accelerators have never had any funding. So it's the first funding for a lot of these folks, and that's okay, because the accelerator is the first chance that startup entrepreneurs have. I think it replaced the old Series A. When I was growing up, my first company, my second company anyway. My first company, I got family and friends money, and then the VCs came in after we were profitable, right?
And now we talk about Series Pre-Seed and Series Seed. Joe, sir, you had a question?
If anyone else in the panel had another point of view.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I certainly would. Yeah, thank you. This is so interesting though, because we hear from Allison about a geographic and in a stage of development issue, and here we hear from Sean about access to very specific resources. So I'd love to know from Lynn and Lisa how you distinguish whether it's corporate strategic issues or in your case gender-related mentorship. This will be very helpful to hear from you too as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So very much in the same lines in terms of thinking about the resources that you would have access to in that accelerator. So for us, it's about connectivity to Hearst. And this is actually how we evaluate the companies that we bring into the portfolio. So we think, how could Hearst be a big difference maker for this company? In many cases, that means that a Hearst business, we have over 380 different businesses, so it can mean a lot of different things, but that a Hearst business is actually a client of the startup. And you can imagine if you're a startup and you have your sales pitch deck, if you can put a Hearst logo or a couple of those companies, it makes a really big difference. And then I think the second thing is around the community. So we have our network of mentors, they're fantastic, but I don't think you can say enough about the people that are sitting to the right and left of you. And for us, it's really helpful that you are sitting next to other female founders who may know which investors that you should go after, because you know that their portfolio is, they've got several female founders in the portfolio, so they're a good one to target. So I would boil it down to the connectivity, what resources you need in the community.
Yeah, I can answer pretty quickly for Accenture. So when to the point of knowing your investor, we're a professional services firm offering services to our clients. So we're very B2B focused. Our clients have B2C applications, so sometimes that can be part of what we're pulling in and looking for, but we're really looking for things that are more around the technology sector and being able to have things that are probably more around emerging technology and looking to have probably capabilities that are taking advantage of either AI or cloud or more of the emerging tech area that we can do some sort of venture funding of, or seed money or future acquisition of, so that we can bring it into our portfolio of services that we're offering to our clients. So that's the lens through which we look at.
Thank you. When you look at this, you can see that two of the major objectives for early stage companies in joining accelerators are access to capital, you all provide that, and also access to customers, which some of the corporate accelerators provide a really good job at doing. And to your point, it's a credibility issue if one of your accelerator portfolio companies now has Hearst or Accenture or an Accenture client as a customer. So can you speak a little bit to the difference between being a financial investor and being a strategic investor, where you're trying to match up not just financial goals, return on capital, but also goals to meet your own organization's, investing to meet your own organization's goals?
So Hearst Lab exists really because of our executive support, who is the chief legal officer at Hearst. And she's been the only woman in the C-level for a number of years. So she stepped back and thought, all right, how do we fix this in one generation rather than 2 or 3? So really at the heart of our mission is to bring visibility to women within Hearst and also women-led companies, because we see this same issue in terms of VC funding. So whenever we're thinking about our program, we are certainly looking at that as one core piece of our mission, and also bringing innovation to Hearst more broadly, men and women, of course, and creating value from our investments. And so in terms of being strategic, everything we look at is through that lens. We would optimize much differently if our only goal was creating value from the investment, but it's so important to us to have that network of Hearst Lab scouts and make sure that they're brought in. So that's actually why we cap our program to only be about 8 companies at a time, so that we make sure that we give each of them the resources and that we're able to match those resources that we have within Hearst and expose them to the innovation that's going on in the lab.
Yeah, the approach I would say we take at Accenture is there's things that are ready to scale, and those are things that we would probably look much more towards doing an acquisition of. We're willing to, place money and bets in multiple areas that maybe are not quite ready for prime time yet, but where we want to be able to be part of that play early on. So that's probably the differentiation I would see for us.
And from the other side of the table, for the entrepreneur, I would say you only want to join an accelerator where there are strategic advantages for you. You don't want to just go for the financial capital, because there's actually a lot of places where you can go for money. And when you join an accelerator, a standard model, I'm not saying that every accelerator follows this, but the standard is you're going to get an investment, but then you're also going to give up some equity in your business as well. So usually convertible note and some equity. You're paying a little bit of a higher price because you're getting the strategic advantages. So be smart about where you decide to go.
That's absolutely true. Accelerators, while they do provide some very much needed financial capital, it's relatively small amounts of capital relative to the overall capital needs of the company. So your point about strategic goals and meeting those strategic goals of the company are really very, very important. Sean, you talked a little bit when you were speaking before about the difference between a first-time entrepreneur and a second or serial entrepreneur. What's the value in your minds to an accelerator program to that serial entrepreneur who's done this before and perhaps has learned some of the lessons that they get from the co-working and the mentorship that they get from an accelerator program?
Yeah, so when you're an entrepreneur, you can't do everything. You have a small team. You really want to leverage what you have, your ideas, through a network and a community. And the second-time entrepreneurs that have been through an SOSP accelerator and come back, or have been successful in building a company in some other sector and come into SOSP, are looking at it as a very inexpensive way. I mean, they get paid money. We buy some equity in their firms, but not a whole bunch. But they get access to a very large community and a whole bunch of benefits. Actually, by joining an accelerator, I'm sure many of the accelerators in the state offer this, you get instant access to a whole bunch of perks that are not available unless you're part of a tier 1 accelerator program. So you get at least $500,000 of free web services from places like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud, et cetera. You get all of these other sort of free benefits and discount things. So it's not the money benefits though by themselves. It's really just leveraging the network and being able to be connected to a wide array of investors. Also having the credibility, of being in a prestigious program. It allows the entrepreneurs to know, or it allows the investors to know that this has been checked out. This is scientifically valid and real. We're making stuff. It's not.
So that there's a diligence perspective to this. Someone like you guys who are professionals or in the particular industry of the company have provided some diligence and a
Yeah.
credibility enhancer for the
Right.
company.
I would say one other thing is just that it is just such a leverage mechanism to use that whole community as well. So if you have a person who's been successful, they've already built a multi-million-dollar business, they're coming back, but now they say they're going into the food industry, and we have all the connections in the food industry, from Nestle to AB InBev or whatever. We can help them have direct inroads to manufacturers, food processors, et cetera, so that they can just get further faster. It's just a very efficient way if you're at the right stage, at the right time, in the right programs for your area and if it was a software company in the United States, there's programs like Techstars or Y Combinator or local programs that are specialized in software. 500 stars is e-commerce or whatever. But if you're going vertical, you want to choose a vertical area where you're going to get the most support or the most direct geographic connections to the community or whatever, or the connections to a customer base like hers, et cetera.
Let's change the topic a little bit. Most accelerated programs run a relatively short program, 12 to 16 weeks. Can you talk a little bit about the length of each of your particular accelerator programs and what you think about that in terms of whether the baby birds are ready to fly when the accelerated program ends?
This is a great question, and it's really hard because we never want them to go. So we actually have a couple of companies that call themselves the super seniors that opted to give us more equity and stay for longer. So they've actually been at Hearst for about 2.5 years now. So we are a 9-month program. Usually the companies end up staying a little bit longer. We feel that that's long enough to get in, get to know the Hearst ecosystem, develop those relationships, and have them be strong enough that when you leave, you can still come back in. And we try to do a number of events like lunch and learns and happy hours where we still get the whole community together. So we just did a CEO lunch, for example, and it was really valuable because we now have companies that are going for their Series B and companies that are going for their true seed. And so they were able to give each other advice along the spectrum, sort of trickling.
It's quite a spectrum.
It is, yeah. And so it's so interesting to hear, I raised my Series A 3 years ago, and this is what I saw, but this is what I see now. So those sorts of interactions are really valuable.
And we're 4 months to 12 months, typically. The core program is 4 months. The only other thing I'd say is, I'm sure most of the programs feel the same way, is that that community of people who graduated are part of that community forever, and they're constantly coming back as mentors and being involved. I'm sure that others also do annual events and things like that, where the community is actually shared.
That's such a critical aspect of the accelerator experience that I think everyone should come away with. It's not simply the program itself, but it's the value of the connections, not only with alumni, but with the group of mentors that you bring to bear in each of your programs.
So I'll use the example of the fintech stuff again, because it varies kind of by sector, but it tends to be 4 months, plus or minus a couple of months on each end. We've had about 150 companies go through the program. Same thing, I think the advantage has been the fact that the large financial services firms are part of the mentorship, and a lot of times they either then do the round of funding or they do an acquisition at the end of that. And then it is that alumni network of that 150 or so companies that have been through.
Our program is 3 months. It's definitely fast, a little, too fast, but at the same time, I think it's good because it pushes us to accelerate and get things done and then move on to the next thing. You could always do 10 more turns of your deck. You can go up or so, but if you have a certain schedule and you have to get certain things done, it just pushes you a little bit.
But you have a co-working space as well, right?
That's right. So it's a 3-month program, but then they can stay and they can work.
It's so interesting. I had never thought about that before, and I'm going to remember this. What you're talking about is creating a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that every entrepreneur needs to have when they're forming a business and they're trying to build and get to the point where they're going to try to get an MVP to market and to get to the point where they are really listening to their customers and doing the iterative process. Because you're right, you can spend an inordinate amount of time on your trade name and your pitch deck, et cetera. And ultimately, you really do have to get down to business. So perhaps that 3 months and that creation of a sense of urgency has some real value to it as well. And I had not thought about that, so I'm going to take that away.
It's a forcing mechanism.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we'd love to get questions from you guys as well. So if there are any questions, please raise your hand. Yes, ma'am.
So, two-part question. I know some of you spoke about what your range of financing was, but if everyone can also talk, like, 40,000 you into the term sheet, what sort of equity do you each ask for?
And even type of instrument. I know some of you do convertible notes, some of you do safes, some of you do priced equity.
Our standard terms is $100,000 in a convertible note. That's at a $4 million cap. This is all on our website. And we take a 4% equity stake. And in addition to that, at your next qualified round of funding, which we consider to be a minimum of $500,000, that automatically triggers a second $100,000 investment.
We do not have any standards.
Entrepreneurial flexibility at its best.
And we have 6 different core different accelerators, and they all by different industries. The food industry is less money for 6% or so of the company. I think it's $50,000 to $100,000. I think we give $50,000 in cash and $30,000 in sort of program values and things like that. And I think on the high end, it's $250,000 is on the indie bio side, and on the hack side, on the hardware side, and that's in the form of $250,000 in cash and $50,000 in engineering services and database and free pizza and beer and things like that. And that's for a 8% equity stake, and the convertible loan note rolls into a next financing round of at a valuation cap of I think $4 million to $3 million. And I'm sorry, and we also take our pro rata. Typically, we take our pro rata on the next financing round. So in IndieBio, the typical company raises $2 million after the accelerator, and we'll take maybe another $200,000 or something at that stage. But it can go up to $1.5 million, depending on the traction.
Our typical check size is $250,000. We usually come in on the existing terms, often it's a convertible or a safe note, and we take 4% warrants for the office-facing services.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, sir, in the back.
Yes, and when you go through your selection process, what are 1 or 2 of your key criteria you look for a thumbs up?
Great
and
question.
Is there any one thing that you see that's been a red flag in your experience that would make you want to stay away from something?
So I mentioned this before, but really the connectivity to Hearst is the #1 thing that we're looking for. Is this a company we can make a big difference with? And I would say in terms of red flags, we listen to our gut, and so if there's something about the founding team that doesn't seem like it's going to be a good fit for our community, even if the idea is really, really sound, we'll say that's a no.
And for us, it's team strategy, products, and customers. So the team is the key thing. It needs to not just be one person. Single founder teams, we've seen so many problems there. So we don't really. It'd be extremely rare for us to do the single founder team. Pretty much never. And then we also are looking for the prototypes of the product to be robust. We do video interviews with everyone because they're all coming from globally. So those are just things that we use to evaluate the team and the products.
I'd go back to kind of what I said before about fit within the industries and the product sets that we bring to our clients. And then I think the thing that would be a red flag for us is we don't believe that things can scale, right? Because we're a big company, we're looking for additional things in emerging technology that allow for scale plays. So we would test on scalability.
In addition to all of those things, one thing that I really look for is just thoughtfulness from the founding team. So, you know, it's great to be passionate about what you're doing, but have you thought, you know, really deeply about it? Do you understand not only the big vision, but how you're going to get there? Have you thought deeply about your competitive landscape? Do you know it through and through? Do you understand your barriers to entry? Have you thought through your intellectual property? Do you have detailed financials? That makes sense. The other thing is, you know, I always like to see, you know, this is just how the world works with business. You know, do you have the relationships either on the team or you have certain advisors who can make that phone call and open up those doors? Because that can mean a lot at the end of the day. As far as red flags, I think you just really have to do your due diligence. And I think anything that kind of even gray area was not honest, that's absolutely just no-brainer red flag right there.
The red flag question is a really good one. A big red flag for me is when I see an entrepreneurial team that has a solution in search of a problem. I want to know that there's a real problem out there that they are solving rather than creating something that the market doesn't actually need. And a very wise venture capitalist told me years ago, as the market began to change in the mid-aughts, that we were out of a time when you could develop something that was just sort of nice to have. And we were entering into a time when the entrepreneur should be producing something that their particular customer base has to have because it drives revenue or it improves productivity, reduces costs, improves the bottom line. And I would say the team issue that you all talked about is something we see constantly. And the single person team is a big red flag, not only at the accelerator level, but as you go beyond that and you're looking for angel investors and venture investors, that is something that is looked at really critically. I think that's important to note. We would be remiss if we didn't also talk about in any kind of acceleration discussion what benefits there may be offered by your particular state's Economic Development Authority, for example. I saw Kathleen here earlier. I'm not sure if she's in the room now. Kathleen, no, but Kathleen Coviello, if you don't know her and members of her team, you should. There's an incredible, someone is here from the EDA, wonderful. Thank you. You find these guys. There are incredible programs that are available. They've been quite creative. Most recently, with the new administration increasing the angel tax credit incentive, I'm not sure if the bill has been signed yet, but that's about to happen where a 10% credit is being increased to a 25% credit. Massive incentive for investors to invest in companies that are here in the state. Do you guys think about that at all in terms of how government may be part of the solution or other benefits of the particular region that the company is going to be in?
Well, certainly, right? I mean, it goes all into the equation that we're working around the factors of what to invest in.
Yeah, so fintech, you think New York, I'm sure, a large degree on the...
There's so many governments, and we invest in 50, 70 countries actually, so we actually don't really look at it. I mean, we're certainly familiar with, like, Canada has some great policies,
yes,
and immigration and R&D tax credits and things like that. Ireland has similar policies, etc. There are certain places where it's a little bit more beneficial, but frankly, we don't really look at heavily.
I think about this a lot when I speak to founders. I always like to point them somewhere that's useful if they're not necessarily a good fit for a program, or if they are. And so I had a great conversation with the New Jersey EDA folks, and the number of programs they have are so interesting. I think as an entrepreneur, it's really easy to just get sort of overwhelmed by the number of accelerator programs or different programs going on. So I think the trick is helping just connect those dots for those companies that can't take advantage of those resources.
It's one of the reasons why having a discussion with folks like you is so valuable, because entrepreneurs who are considering an accelerator program need to be able to dissect and be able to separate out where they should pay attention and who might be the appropriate, what might be the appropriate accelerator for them. Anything that you guys want to add to that last question? Okay, we have time for one more question. Yes, sir.
So I heard a brief mention of intellectual property protection. So do you look for a size of a portfolio, the maturity of the portfolio? Are they provisional filings, non-provisional? And what about knowledge of the competitive landscape of IP? Like, how do you worry about when you have someone come in? Do you expect them to have an awareness of what their competitors have filed on and have issued?
I'll just briefly respond. A bunch of, all the people that run our accelerator programs have started and run multi-million-dollar companies. And, so all of us have some familiarity with patents. I have several patents myself, and patent portfolios now the patent strategy today is very different than it was previously. All that said, we're not expecting people to come in with a patent portfolio. We can help them with all those issues and give them some really a couple of key pointers on how to keep the patent alive so you can extend the patent portfolio, etc. There's really inexpensive ways for the startups at the phase that we're at, but we don't advise for people to have too large of a patent portfolio because it's about winning in the marketplace for most of these companies. Some of the long-term science companies that don't have revenues for a few years, it's more about that. But in general, it's about winning in the marketplace and filing your provisional patents, giving yourself a year of time to get your priority date and then flush it out.
It really depends on your business. Any business that's building has to build barriers to entry. And for certain businesses, it makes a lot of sense to have patents around your technology. For other businesses, there are going to be other ways that prevent others from entering. So you happen to have a business where patent is a necessity. Yes, you should absolutely have an understanding of what are the patents that are out there already. Why does your patent protect your technology? What are some of the risks to your patent? What does it not cover? So yes, if that is important to your business, you should have a very thoughtful understanding of the landscape.
These are great points. What I urge a company to consider, an entrepreneur to consider, is not just this issue of patents, but an intellectual property strategy